Right. Well, thanks a lot, Jerome. Thanks for this opportunity. Indeed, pleasure to see many of you again. I've worked with EURADA in the past, and it's always nice to be in touch. And we started this project, Green Assists, with the setup phase a bit less than a year ago. But now comes the phase when it becomes really interesting, I think, also for the potential beneficiaries. And so we want to make sure that everybody that is eligible is aware of it and knows how to get access to it. And then I thought, of course, I'm going to approach EURADA, and I'm happy to be here to tell you a bit more about what it is, Green Assist, but let's also take sufficient time for questions afterwards. I'm very well aware that very often these things are like, okay, somebody gives a presentation and you think maybe interesting, maybe I'll get back to it later. And then you forget and your other priorities take over, being at the European Week of the Region Cities or whatever. So I'll provide you with contact details. There's also my colleague Christina joining. That's good to meet her as well, so that you have direct contact points to link up to if you have further questions, if you want to check something. We're happy to be available, and we really want to make sure that we don't only communicate about the existence of this, but that it actually translates into applications that get the support, because that's ultimately what we want to do. So what I wanted to do as a starting point here is really to tell you what it is. What is Green Assist? What does it offer? So why should anybody go for it? Who falls in this eligibility scope of going for it? And then a few tips and tricks just to give you also a bit of a feeling of like, okay, how can I get it? And is it difficult? How much effort is it? And what to focus on when you develop an application. I'm providing you also with a lot of information on where you can find further details, and again, happy to answer questions on the spot when I'm done with the presentation. So what's Green Assist? In a nutshell, it's an advisory support scheme that is financed by the European Commission, is managed by CINEA, and that has the ambition to support the building of a pipeline of green investment projects. So it's all about greening investments. We need more investments in Europe that are green and that help us in achieving the Green Deal targets. And it is for a broad range of people. So it's not very restrictive in the sense of who can apply to it. It can be private companies. We have seen it already. It can also be public entities. And it is, in terms of sectors, also quite broad. I will get back to that later. How does it work? It is on demand, so there is not a fixed moment of application deadline. You can apply anytime. It tailors the support to the needs of the request when eligible. So it's not a fixed set, this is what you get, apply for it or not. No, it goes the other way around. You say what you need, and then we look, can we offer you a program, and how can that program look like in the end? And how is it being implemented? There are two things. One is specialized roster of experts, and we have also made calls for experts, and we have several hundred experts already on that list that have been selected to support projects individually. So we can select these experts and match them with the request. And the second point, that is also only for larger requests that need big capacity building type of support. There may be a decision of CINEA to specifically contract larger consultancies to do that support. This is what I'm not able to talk about here, because this is not the part of the contract that we are running. This is a separate thing, but it's important for you to know when you hear Green Assist, it covers in principle the two things. It's the advisory services of the roster, and it's the larger capacity building enabling services, as CINEA likes to call it, that are specifically contracted. So when you apply for it, it's CINEA's decision to allocate you to one or the other. And I will, in the remainder of this presentation, focus more on the roster side. So here you have it again. You have the project advisory, and you have the enabling advisory. And I'm talking about the first one, which is a lot about project preparation, development aspect. So we're talking really from the stage of somebody having a project idea to someone being close to an actual investment. Anything in that time span is in principle eligible. So there's no minimum maturity requirement beyond having a clear project idea that we can actually help you with. So don't come asking us for ideas, but come with an idea where you have a problem that needs support. Then we can talk about it. We can see what support is the best one that fits. In terms of sectors, I mentioned it, there is no very hard focus of which sectors the projects should come from. Obviously, there are political priorities, and there are sectors where it's more natural that requests will come from. There is a high ambition to push for support in biodiversity. We know there's not enough investment in biodiversity, so this is outlined as an area. If the biodiversity project, this is for sure very interesting. Natural capital as well. I think circular economy, when we're talking about green investment, goes without saying that that is kind of a logical type of area where you would expect applications to come from that need support. But it can also be other sectors, as long as it fulfills the greening conditions that I will get into in a moment, can be from there. So it's rather flexible in this respect. Few key features before going further in detail. It's quite easy to get, I have to say, at this moment, because the application form is very limited, is very simple, and it's not that you have to tailor yourself to a program. It's the other way around. It's the program that is tailored to you. So the process is relatively simple. You need to be clear about what you need, and then there is a matching exercise that comes afterwards. I mentioned the matching, so it's about matching experts and programs to your needs, finding a way that gives you a support package that fits your project. And yeah, it's free. I mean, it doesn't cost. To be clear, any project development, and I think everybody who has developed a project needs, of course, also your own resources on your own time. So it's not that you can say, I need support, here's my project, please bring me back my project in a few months and tell me the outcomes. That's not how it's going to work. Advisory services are really effective and really help you in advancing your project if you work together with the advisors. So that is a requirement, that you make your own time available. Projects are there themselves, but you don't need to pay for the experts or any expenses related to the experts. That is provided to you. Now, when it's about identification of projects that are eligible, so I put here a screenshot of the key eligibility criteria. There's also the link to the full list of eligibility criteria that you can look at on the website. But I always tell people, start with 3 basic questions. When you're thinking, okay, do I have an investment project? Do I know somebody that has an investment project? Then you have already starting first filter. Any project where somebody at one point will put money on the table to make it happen is an investment project. That is the definition. So an investment project. Second question, it's green assist. So second question, is there an environmental purpose in there? So is the project serving an environmental objective? We can also look at projects that don't have an environmental objective per se, but see potential to improve their environmental performance. So also greening off a project can be defined as an environmental objective. So that's a clarification, but there needs to be in the application a need for, or there needs an implication clarity that the implementation of the project after green assist support is doing something good or better for the environment. Sorry, and then the third point, obviously, why do you ask for support? Well, because you need support. So there needs to be clarity on, I'm stuck somewhere and I can't solve it myself and I don't know how to solve it. And that can range from typical business challenges, so being them business plan related or cash flow modeling or any financial structures, to rather technical environmental aspects, so being it environmental impact assessments or technical feasibility aspects or so on. So we have a mix of business and technical experts that we can draw from to address such challenges, and that needs to be clear. Okay, what are the challenges? Where is there a need for support? How does that work in the end? So indeed, I mentioned it already before. We have a tailored advisory support that is linked to the needs. There is the experts that work with you and with our team that arranges the work program to help advancing on this investment readiness level scale, as we call it, and move towards investment readiness. In practice, projects apply. They express their needs. We assess them in terms of their admissibility. So do they fall in the criteria? Do we see it promising? Is there an added value of Green Assist? We then look for experts that match these needs. We discuss with the experts what they could do here. We then go into the definition of the support program. So we come up with a draft program. We share that with the applicants. Okay, look, this is what we think we can do. Ask for feedback. And once in this trilogue of the three parties, we agree on a common program and it is approved by CINEA, we launch the support and we steer and monitor this progress and make sure that that you're happy with what you do. To give you a bit of a flavor of how big of a support we're talking about here, usually we're talking about assignments, supports that range between 3 and 6 months and that require expert days of some 20 to 80 days. These are not hard barriers, but this usually gives people a bit of an indication we're talking about here. We're not talking about here for a huge multi-annual support program. We're talking really about rather tailored things. So this is a concrete problem I have where I need an expert to help me, to push me forward in the development of it. Yeah, this is a picture you will also find on the website on the beneficiary journey, but I have already outlined it before, so I'm going to repeat this. There are more materials, and I would really encourage you to have a look at them, especially also sign up for the LinkedIn group that we have. We try to keep that active to have exchange there so you know what's going on. And share them with anybody you know that may have a project that is relevant, and encourage them to contact us and to look forward. I have a risk at this moment that people are very confused, and there's always the question, what projects do we support? So how can you give me an example? Now, I said it, we're at an early stage, so we have started supporting some projects. We have more in the pipeline that are currently being assessed. So we are not yet in a position to show you final projects that have received support. What we did to make it easier to understand is to come up with typical projects that we could expect. So we have here 3 illustrative examples, and to structure them in the type of supports that can there be. But don't take that as a limiting factor again, but maybe as a guidance, as something that could help you. And again, so we have usually projects that have technical challenges to be addressed, that need a technical expert in their support. We have more business side, so I have a good idea that is technically working, but how can I make it business ready to get an investor to put money on the table? And the third one is the greening challenge. So here we're talking more about increasing the environmental performance of an investment project. So can I do so? And I've brought a few hypothetical examples. Again, these are not real projects, but they are supposed to help you understand. And in the process of the next month and year, we want to provide also more information about actual projects, so that gives them a further guidance on what's there. The first one I wanted to show you is what we call the Build with Waste project. So here we are assuming a project that found a way to transform household waste into new insulation and has done some checks on the technical efficiency of it, and that's 25% more efficient than typical insulation materials. There's a draft business plan. They have spoken with some investors who say, yeah, great idea. Once you show me the details, we can talk about it. But there are a few issues. So they identified they have a good idea, they have an investment, but they also see there are some issues. There is an issue on the environmental balance of the production process, so it's not always working as they want. High energy inputs needed. And that's why they need environmental impact assessments and also an elaboration of maintenance plans. But they don't know who can do that. It's a startup. They don't have money. They are not able to pay an expert for that. So they could apply for Green Assist and present that need, that project and that need, and then we could come up with a support program that would provide such an environmental impact assessment for them. A second example, so here we're talking more about the business challenge side. We said, okay, let's take a family business that is in the fashion design field, renew clothes. So we have seen in reality that some old style clothes are coming back. Secondhand is very popular, right? But maybe not everybody likes to wear secondhand. At the same time, being more environmentally sustainable on clothing is something that might attach people. So there's the idea, okay, making new clothes out of old clothes, so a form of recycling and reducing waste. We're assuming here that, okay, there's a simple technology that was discovered for that, and some market research demonstrates that there's interest for it, so the implementation stage. So they have the basic idea, but they have no idea how to upscale that, and they need investors. So they are asking for the support on cash flow modeling and review of business models. That could be another example. And the third one, where we're talking about the greening aspect of a project, that's also as an example where we say, okay, regional development agency wanting to renovate schools, so sustainable schooling topic that we have come up with. Let's make all schools new schools. They should be, of course, modern, a sustainable learning environment. The investment project is basically there, but there is an investment gap. So for the best solution, also there is some room for enhancing the environmental performance, or they think there is a room and they would like to have an outside perspective on that, an outside review of the environmental performance of the plans, and also support in identification of funding sources and ideas, crowdfunding, but how would you do something like this? So they apply, and we can mobilize a support program and experts to look at. Now, a few practical points that I would like to still pass on before I open the floor for questions. How does it work with the application? So Green Assist is linked to the InvestEU portal. So any requests for advisory services can be placed in the InvestEU portal. That's a standardized form for any support of such projects. In there, you need to fill certain key questions, and they are defined for any type of support. So it might not immediately look exactly, you go in there with the idea, I want Green Assist, because that was the presentation that Andreas from Green Assist showed me. You might feel like, is this really Green Assist? Because it might not be obvious. So don't get distracted by it. There are standard forms. They are for all advisory services. So you need to provide simple click selection information on the type of advisory support that you may need. You need to provide the sector that the project is from. You need to say what type of project promoter it is. Is it a public, private, a public-private? And then you have some open fields on the project description. And these are probably the most important ones to make sure that you get in the end to us and that you get what you want. So there's also the estimated project costs and then the actions that have been taken in that form. Now back to the project description part. So this is open text. And we see that often applicants don't make use of that in the right way. And that may lead to being allocated, either rejected even, or allocated to wrong services, or need afterwards a burdensome process of a lot of clarification questions. So we do send clarification questions later on if they're needed, but if applicants can provide clarity on a few core points in that box, it makes it a lot easier and speeds up the process. And what is it that we would for sure want to see in there? It's objectives of the project, scope of the project, geographic location of the project, and it's a description of the concrete needs. So where do I really need support? There's no need to go on forever. Details can be discussed later, but clarity on, okay, what is it? Do I need a business expert? Is it cash flow modeling? Is it environmental impact assessment? Is it greenhouse gas modeling? Is it, I don't know, you name it. To write that in there and justify these needs as well, if possible, and to specify the environmental impact of that the project may have, so that we really clearly see, yes, this is a green assist related project and not any investment project. So that can be put in there. There's a words limit, so there's no need to go on for pages, but briefly to the point, use the lines that you have for that. What happens afterwards? So that is the process of the InvestEU portal. The application gets allocated to an investment advisory partner. And if it is labeled as it should be supported by Green Assist, it comes to Green Assist and is being placed to us if it is falling under the expert roles, so the advisory support components. We then check the completeness of information. We usually get back with further clarification questions or additional information requests that we need. And then we do the eligibility check. Okay, does it fulfill all the criteria as expected, as outlined before? Does it also justify support from an added value basis? Because keep in mind, the support can differ between 20 to 80 days or can go a bit beyond or a bit below, but below is getting to a level where there comes the question mark, is it worth supporting? If we do all the assessment process and define a work program, you want to also have experts spend a certain amount of time on it. So there should be sufficient need for support as well. Then we go in the stage of designing the work program, finding the experts, discussing work program together with them and the beneficiaries, and then launch the support. A few points to remember. Again, it's free. It's not only for bankable projects. I think that's also important to mention. It's investment project that can be public-private funding. It can also be public funding. There is no clear direction who needs to be the investor later on. We are neutral on that front. It's about helping to get a project towards investment readiness in its own needs. Then it is tailored expert support based on the needs and not the other way around. And the request should always include clarity on the environmental benefits of the project and the support needs. I put again here key links, but I also put contact email addresses, and there are two functional mailboxes that I would refer you to. One is the one of Ecoris, that's us. So that's particularly my colleague Christina, and maybe she can say hi in a moment as well, that are monitoring this and responding to it. And if you have projects yourself, if you know projects, if you know locations where we could find projects, events where we could find projects, I would really, really appreciate if you could bring us in touch with people. We're happy to set up individual chats if it makes sense, or to share further information with them to make sure that that they can get that support as quickly as possible. If you want to know anything in general about Green Assist, you can obviously also go to CINEA, and I would say especially if you're interested in the second block of Green Assist, the enabling services, the consultancy services with a large scale support, then I would direct you to CINEA here. But also there, no problem. If you get to us, we will tell you if you're at the right place or not. So it's always okay to approach us. And Christina turned on her camera, so that's great. Maybe you can unmute yourself and say hello for a second.
Yes, hi. I turned my camera on a bit later because I was battling with the Zoom. But anyway, hi. So I'm Christine. I'm working with Andreas on Green Assist. So I'm mainly the contact point, like the person behind the functional mailbox. So whatever questions you may have about Green Assist projects, like Andreas said, please feel free to send it to us. We'll be happy to respond.
Yeah, and Christina is also in touch with many of the experts and projects that are already getting support. So she's part of the team assessing and monitoring the support and making sure that they do it. So good that she's here and can help me in answering any questions, because I think I'm coming to an end. I've spoken enough, and I'm happy to answer questions now.
Thank you very much. Very clear presentation. Also very helpful to have some, even though some imaginary project examples, but that definitely very much helps to understand. Yeah, are there any questions from the audience? Just raise your virtual hands. Corrado, would you like to ask a question? Or is it just unmuting? We have a question in the chat. It's about investment projects, not only banking project. Can you explain it a little bit more?
Yeah, we are cautious in using the term bankable projects, because usually when you're talking about investment projects, you very often end up in the banking environment, where it's where a project needs to be fully economically sustainable so that a bank would put money on it. Here we are also allowing for projects that might not be directly falling under that definition of being bankable, but where there is potentially somebody willing to put money on it, on the table for it. So that could also be a public provider for the public good. And if you think of biodiversity projects, I think you will quite quickly end up in such a situation. Let's take the regeneration of a river bed that might have in the long run very positive economic impact on tourism in that area. So maybe a region is interested in making such an investment, but a bank would say, okay, but where's my return on investment? So that's why we are a bit more cautious, and that's why we're using the terminology investment readiness rather than bankability.
There was also a follow-up question. Do you mean risk project? Not sure if that has already been answered by your response.
Yes, sure. So risk project can be risky. It's not. We're not risk averse.
Maybe connect the question before we go to Roberta's question. So this is specifically for projects, right? So a lot of development agencies, of course, have their own investment schemes and financing tools that maybe have as an objective to some form of environmental schemes to fulfill, but there's no support for helping greening those investment tools or schemes or funding opportunities that development agencies may have set up. Is specifically for individual projects. So if a project is being invested, financed by an investment scheme, by a development agency, that's where it comes into play, but it's not necessarily a service.
Yeah, or before. So when it wants to be able to get such support.
Great.
Yeah, then it's a project that might want to get ready to get such support. So these are the kind of contexts that I would be very interested to hear of. Okay, do you know interested projects in such schemes that you provide that are not eligible yet because they're not ready and they don't know how to get there? And maybe they are, because there is no support for them, they get parked, they don't happen. So it's all about making sure that we don't leave such projects behind that somehow have an expertise gap.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of collaboration opportunity there between Green Assist and development agencies. Yeah.
Indeed. So that would be super interesting for me to talk to such, get in contact to such projects. And on the schemes themselves, so yeah, I would not have that fall under the project advisory. I cannot exclude that they would fall under the more capacity building enabling services, but that is something that we would have to ask and clarify with CINEA, because I'm not in the position to answer.
No worries. Roberta asked if the roster of experts is still open and if it's possible to see that online.
It's possible to still apply for it. So we also, now that we are starting to see, okay, which requests come in, where do we have gaps in the needs, we make more tailored calls for geographical and content expertise areas. It's not public information who's on the GDPR questions as well, so it's not publicly accessible, but it is open still.
Any other questions from the audience? I also have 2 or 3. So first question is, does the beneficiary have to have a seat in the EU? Because we also have members that are outside of the European Union. So are they also eligible for that?
The limits, Christina, help me. The limits is live participating countries, right? So
sorry, EU27 and live participating countries that are Iceland, Moldova, Ukraine, and as of 2 weeks ago, North Macedonia as well.
So that's the limit. It doesn't mean that there cannot be also seats outside, but there needs to be the person in charge, basically, that we're talking to needs to be within those countries, and the majority of the project investment also needs to happen within that geographical scope.
Right. How long is Green Assist going to run for? Is it limited already, or is it not yet defined?
So the overall, we have a framework contract that started in autumn last year, and it runs for 4 years. And so we are concluding the first year, so it is still on for a bit. Yeah. And of course, this framework contract has a certain ceiling of a budget that CINEA has available for support. The particularity, I think, here, why I would also not tell people now to, okay, let me wait maybe in 2 years, is keep in mind we are not having competitive calls for support. It's the call, you apply when you are ready, or when you think you want to apply. And I would always say, in case of doubt, apply a bit earlier than later, and not wait until everything is perfect, because we can fine-tune the things in conversation as well if we see that that is promising enough. If you are eligible, then it's about defining the work program, and as long as there is still money available to give support, I don't see major objections why CINEA would then say no.
Right. So in the end, it's also come first, serve first.
It's in some ways first come, first serve, yes, because we cannot compare directly to each other, because the applications come when they come, and our processes are organized in such a way to, as quickly as possible, move from application comes at our desk to having the start of the support.
All right. I have one more question, but I also don't want to take the floor too much. So if there's any other questions, just raise your hand or post them in the chat. My last question would be if there's any limits to receiving the service if you already receive some other form of technical assistance, because I'm not an expert on this particular field, but there's always a lot of different opportunities to receive support at the European level. So I assume there's maybe similar supports already. And if you have received assistance before, would that exclude you from being able to apply for Green Assist? Or is there maybe even some cooperation with other technical assistances out there?
Yeah, you need to be a bit careful in avoiding double funding. So I think that's what you're referring to. So you should not receive support for the same things again that you have already received or that you have applied for in parallel. But if things build on each other or are obviously complementary to each other, I don't think there's a limitation.
Great, thank you. Any other questions left unanswered? If not,
can I ask a question?
Of course.
So having heard that presentation, does it trigger? Do people now think like, oh yes, I have people in mind that could be interested, that have projects for such an application? Or
I think this is that is a question for our audience, for our members.
Anybody saying like, yes, that I know already 1, 2, 3 people that I should contact?
No, yes, they might think of somebody. And Gabriela, you have your hand raised.
Hi, so my name is Gabriela. I'm from Romania, from Regional Development Agency. About the question, and also I had a question, if it's possible. First, my question would be if there is a fixed time for the assistance that you can provide, and about the question that you raised, we also are a regional office for EEN, and it's a network for small and medium enterprises, and we were thinking about providing and maybe passing this possibility to get for the enterprises from our region. Do you think that it can be a good idea? Can we pass this information on for the companies to come to you with their ideas of projects?
Absolutely, yes, please do so. I have no reason to say don't share information, share it with everybody that might be interested. I would particularly say if you have concrete people in mind, to tell them specifically, yes, have a look at this and contact them if need be, because we all know how it goes. When I put it in a newsletter, maybe it disappears somewhere. When it becomes too unpersonal, too abstract, then it might be parked for the future. And to your question, I'm not sure I fully understand what you mean by time limit, when the application comes, or how long the support would last.
It's how long the support would last, because I've seen from the examples that you provide support like plans, and also the implementation will be included or no? Because I know from the fact that the companies, they do receive these documents, but I don't know if they know how to implement the actions that you will provide or something. Yeah, so okay. If you will also provide support during the implementation of the actions that you propose.
Okay, that depends a bit. So as I said, so the general idea is that experts would spend between 20 and 80 days, more or less, in a time frame of 3 to 6 months, more or less. Can be a bit less, can be a bit more. What exactly happens and what they do with these 20 to 80 days depends on the agreement and the needs of the program. So is it more background? Is it more research type of, and here's a document and I'll deal with it? Or is it more hands-on? Okay, let's go together to talk to this and that person, or a combination of the two. That depends on what are the specific needs and what is agreed on in the work program. What usually happens is that you don't have these 20 to 80 days in one block. Usually there is an agreement on a timeline. Okay, now the experts do some research on the following point, and they spend about 10 days on that, and then we meet, and then there's a feedback, and then it comes the next action. So we define it in a little project in the project, such with different responsibilities, and we agree between the parties in a work program that both sides have to sign on, like, okay, these are the objectives, these are the milestones, this is what I need to do, this is what you need to do in that time frame.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And yes, so please share, and good to see that there were some ideas already on who concretely to share it. Feel free to share yourself, but again, feel free really to put people in touch with us directly. Jerome, we can pass the materials. I think you have already passed on. It's best to use our functional mailbox. We'll really use it to make sure that no holiday absence or whatever leads to delays. But or if there are specific events you think we should consider showing up to meet people in person, it's always nice to talk in person. I'd also be very happy to do that.
I'm sure we will soon discover events, opportunities, and we will make sure to disseminate this as much as possible in our network. So unless there's any other questions, or you have another question, Andreas or Christina, thank you very much for the presentation today, for bringing this opportunity up with our members. I'm looking forward to future cooperation. And yeah, as mentioned, we will upload this recording to YouTube, so you can rewatch that about the information. We have the slides ready, so we can share those afterwards, which is always helpful. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask us, and the functional mailboxes of Green Assist. So thank you very much for your attendance today. Have a great rest of the day, and see you soon.
Thanks a lot for the invitation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.